With it being 10 years since this spin-off became a thing, and 7 years ago I kickstarted my YouTube channel, which was a month after I've become a brony of My Little Pony. A lot has changed over the last 7 years, and when it comes to this being 10 years old today, I felt like I needed to make this video because I knew full well that with it being 10 years old at this point, I really need to express what I really feel about it right now. And to also express what I felt during my years of being a brony while watching Equestria Girls and Friendship is Magic. But this video is mainly about Equestria Girls. I know some of my subscribers are still fans of My Little Pony and the spin-off as well. But considering I gave up with My Little Pony in 2021 and I didn't contribute much in the Pony community last year, which is 2022, I had to admit that I'm no longer a brony to, well, a lot has changed, and the fact that my obsession with Equestria Girls has faded to the point that when it came to getting into other cartoons, those cartoons are superior over Equestria Girls. Now, when it comes to Friendship is Magic, that's a completely different story. But like I said, this has nothing to do with Friendship is Magic, it's just Equestria Girls, and the next time I'm gonna be doing another Lonely Vibes video involving My Little Pony, it would definitely be on Friendship is Magic, and including my experience as being a brony. Well, there's more on me being a brony since I'm expressing what I have for this video, but at the same time, Friendship is Magic didn't got me invested into becoming a brony, Equestria Girls, which, in all honesty, for someone who got into My Little Pony from Friendship is Magic and never experienced anything from Equestria Girls, and stated that Equestria Girls just isn't that good and way too cliched. 2016 was a year that changed my life for the better. I've turned 18 on my birthday. I was done being a junior in high school, and I'm about to be a senior in the following year, well, not really following year, but the next school year. And when it came to recording stuff off of the school's MacBook, because at the time I didn't have my own MacBook, I had my iPad that I ended up using my own money and using my audio videos to make, and using it for my audio videos. A lot has changed over the last several years, to the point that when I got into newer cartoons, I ended up giving up on My Little Pony completely because it didn't got me invested. And over time, my opinions of it somewhat stay the same, but at the same time, I just couldn't express them good enough, knowing full well that back then, I was way too critical towards Equestria Girls rather than enjoying it. Here's the thing, I was originally gonna be doing a review of the first Equestria Girls movie to celebrate its 10th anniversary, and possibly the other movies for their 10th anniversary in the next upcoming years, but I've already made revisits towards those movies that I literally can't be able to make up my mind completely on why these movies just didn't work out for me, or the fact that the people's perspectives on those movies just didn't got them interested. Mainly the ones who didn't really enjoy Equestria Girls, unlike some people do. And believe me when I say this, this spin-off literally got me invested into doing videos of reviews, analysis, and to be perfectly honest, 2016 up until 2019 or 2020 was literally a time where I really wanted to do something that Equestria Girls related and nothing else, because believe me when I say this, I really didn't have a lot of doing any other activities other than Equestria Girls. I may have talked about old cartoons, but at the same time, they were mainly from my childhood. So for anyone who is new to my channel that has never seen my Equestria Girls videos, mainly my reviews off of the digital series from seasons 1 and 2, I don't blame you if you don't look into my older content. I mean, I don't look into older content in other channels since that the newer content had got me invested. So, judging of how my content has changed ever since I got into newer cartoons, a lot really made the older content a lot more impale in comparison to the newer content. Believe me when I say this, whenever I talked about Equestria Girls, it's mainly for one thing, which I'm pretty sure some old subscribers will understand, and that's mainly my huge grudge towards Equestria Girls, which, in all honesty, with it being my first media of discussion on my channel, you can really tell that my earlier years was basically something I need to start when it comes to humble beginnings. Humble beginnings of just trying to think better for what other people wanted and try to think positive of what should be positive. And that was also around the time where the bullying community had problems that I didn't realize, nor didn't mind, but as time went on, I really felt like the oddest one in the bullying community, even though that I never attend to a bullying convention. Believe me when I say this, my experiences with Equestria Girls is a lot more different when you have experiences on getting into the franchise of whatever it is. My investment of Equestria Girls started all the way back in May of 2016, which is the month where my birthday is taking place. And after watching bits and pieces of friendship games, it got me interested into looking into the content of Equestria Girls, because let me tell you, I really felt like that 2016 was literally a year that felt like a wild card of emotions, and a lot was going on to the point that I want to keep up on so much My Little Pony stuff after watching Equestria Girls that my investment towards Friendship is Magic just proves to me that I prefer Equestria Girls over Friendship is Magic. But getting back on topic, after watching the bits and pieces of Equestria Girls friendship games, along with the first Equestria Girls film and Rainbow Rocks, I wanted to get friendship games on my birthday, or the first Equestria Girls film. I didn't have any interest into Rainbow Rocks, but once I saw the 3 movie gift set, I decided to have that instead, and I ended up getting all 3 movies, which led me to make my video involving, you guessed it, Princess and Human Twilight. You know, the fact that the first video I ever made is 7 years old, and it ended up becoming my most outdated video of all time, it really shows that my lack of knowledge of Equestria Girls on Friendship is Magic really sums up my interest of being into Equestria Girls more than Friendship is Magic is either a mistake or basically what the meaning of life is, whether you're getting into that material, but you didn't get into the other material that you're supposed to be invested, rather than the material that is a spin-off of a franchise. This is literally my perspective towards Equestria Girls on holding grudges towards it, is it got the worst out of me. Because believe me, I was trying to be nice and I tried to be positive, but as more content has been coming out and the more I watch them, despite making reviews of them and try to stay positive, in the present time, those videos weren't a mistake, but at the same time, I was way too respectful and way too generous to the point that it was a lot more difficult to go against this over one petty thing that you really wanted. And yet at the same time, when you look at the issues involving this, it kind of shows that despite being for little girls, it could have been a lot more better, knowing full well that when people have stated that the first Equestria Girls is bad, I can guarantee you that as the series progressed, they will probably either defend them and say that they're still better than the first Equestria Girls movie, which I did not see people argue over that, but at the same time, I can instantly tell that the more I think about these material and the fact that it's been going on for 7 years, and the fact that this spin-off had to come to an end due to Friendship is Magic coming to an end, this ended up becoming a waste of thought in comparison of other cartoons that I've gotten into in mid-2020. Because let me tell you, I had a difficult time trying to find some positivity in the Equestria Girls ever since I got older and older. But considering that I've been mostly negative on revisiting these, it really shows that I was being way harsher towards this than I have. Even though that I wasn't trying to be harsh, I was just being somewhat of a nuisance, not really somewhat, but still a nuisance, and just not accepting these for what they are, except on the fact that they don't even try hard with the supporting characters, which I'm gonna get to later. If I'm gonna come clean of how I felt about this spin-off after years of abandoning it in favor of other cartoons, it's probably the fact that when I reviewed the digital series Season 1 back in 2020 of August, I wanted to do something involving Equestria Girls because it was around the time I thought that Equestria Girls was on hiatus. Like, the original company who made the episodes aren't in business into making this, and the fact that Hasbro was focusing on Generation 5. So, my perspective towards the first season of the digital series was honestly a mixed experience, considering that after doing Summerpalooza 2, I wanted to do something positive involving Equestria Girls, because aside from doing fanfics and doing fanfic readings of 2 fanfics involving Equestria Girls in Equestria Girls month, and also from Summerpalooza 2, which are quite a lot, I really wanted to stay so positive to see that Equestria Girls will return in order to either be in hiatus because we didn't get an announcement on the fact that there would be a continuation, or it did come to an end. Because believe me, the Discovery Family commercial of Holidays Unwrapped when they stated that the final adventures of Equestria Girls, I didn't believe that in the slightest. Like, I really didn't believe that. Which is why I ended up believing that there was gonna be something more going on, that people are going to say that Equestria Girls is going to outlive Friendship is Magic. But unfortunately, in March of 2021, it wasn't the case. During that announcement that Equestria Girls is no longer being continued, all the while that it's coming to an end, and after a year of getting that information, well, more than a year since Holidays Unwrapped premiered on Discovery Family in November of 2019, it's the downfall of my obsession towards Equestria Girls have started, and it didn't change the fact that I was into Steven Universe and We Bare Bears, Amphibia, and the Owl House at that time. Because as far as I'm concerned, I really had less to do with, and when it came to doing one fanfic or 2 involving the Equestria Girls, mainly the Halloween fanfic, the Christmas fanfic that I ended up canceling because it just wasn't worth it. It was really a shallow time for me involving getting back into Equestria Girls when literally everything about it just means nothing at the end. Spin-off or not, in the movies they at least meant something, But afterwards, it just really feels like that they just didn't know what to do with the spinoff, because they just don't know how to make it as good as Friendship is Magic, which for me personally, it gave me the realization that no matter how hard you have passion into it, even if it's not the same as everyone else's, you're going to get these news from the production or off of a website that is true, that you literally have nothing else to express over when it comes to passion, and don't want anything to do with that media anymore. And to be perfectly honest, the times I've watched people discussing Equestria Girls or making reactions or doing CinemaSins parodies of Equestria Girls, I honestly felt like that those videos, despite being good for what they are, just weren't good for me. And this also applies to the films and stuff that I talked about involving Equestria Girls. Because in 2021, I tried to stay positive by doing 2 fanfics, one of which I didn't finish, and doing a video of reviewing the Summertime shorts as part of Summerpalooza 3. I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you. When I made that Summertime shorts video, it wasn't really a bad idea, but at the same time, I literally had a lot going on for Summerpalooza that it's mainly discussing in its own video when it comes to Lonely Vibes. So I'm just gonna say right now that making this from watching the 4 Summertime shorts all the way up to the music videos, I didn't have anything going for Equestria Girls aside from doing the Christmas story. Well, it's mainly my last bit of interest of Equestria Girls being sucked out. Trust me when I say this, the video involving Summertime shorts just wasn't that important to me, and considering that I just didn't know what to do with Equestria Girls and My Little Pony related, and I ended up using this in order to be ready for the next My Little Pony movie, A New Generation, that is coming out a month later, which was in September 2021. The video of Summertime shorts are really difficult to look back on, because I barely look back into these videos, unlike the digital series reviews, because at least when it came to season 2, I was keeping up with it. Even if it's insignificant, at least I was doing something in order to keep up with something recently. But as time went on, and the more I realized that this review of Summertime Shorts just wasn't as good as I thought it was, and as I grew out of Equestria Girls by the end of 2021, all the while expressing that I'm no longer a brony at the end of 2022, it was literally a game changer, but at the same time, it was mostly a long time coming that could have happened way earlier than late. Let's be real, if I never got into other cartoons in 2020, I would probably be in a position where I don't have anything else to work with aside from reviewing old cartoons. And if I still dropped Equestria Girls, I'm pretty sure that I don't even have anything else better to do when it comes to something that I'm extremely passionate about. Believe me when I say this, I understand that you may not care about how I feel or what I feel towards cartoons, and what I feel about formulating an opinion that isn't the most popular, but at the same time, since I kept my username LonelyFanboy48 for 7 years, and the fact that I haven't changed it at all, it really shows that my passion towards Equestria Girls, when it comes to how it was back then, was mainly how I felt when it comes to my perspective on things that aren't really the most popular. Because let me tell you, when I try to look into other content, mainly that isn't Equestria goers, I want to start off fresh by not being extremely rude, because in all fairness, the other cartoons didn't got me triggered as much as Equestria goers did when it comes to keeping my hatred and my grudges all to myself. Because believe me, I've been doing that for way longer, to the point that people just don't realize it until it comes into play. Now, this has nothing to do on the fact that Human and Princess Twilight never interact. But the other grudges that I have is that, aside from a few exceptions, mainly such as Shimmer, it's difficult to root for any of the other characters despite being human counterparts of the pony counterparts. Because let me tell you, I don't even think that they're really capable of carrying an episode or a special, unlike Sunset Shimmer. Because one of the reasons onto why I couldn't stand Roller Coaster of Friendship, onto why I've been making revisits towards this, and the fact that I completely changed my mind about Spring Breakdown, is mainly the fact that the characters, mainly Applejack, Rarity, and Rainbow Dash, can't be able to carry a special on their own when it comes to Equestria goers. Look, it's one thing to make these counterparts different from the other, but the problem is that they didn't even flesh out the relationships completely. I did saw Roller Coaster of Friendship, and I do understand the meaning of the characters just trying to get along and realizing the problems of the antagonists. However, the problem with that is that it's mainly filled with filler, but for the wrong reasons. Let me tell you, when it came to Rarity, who is the main character, and the fact that the majority of it is just her just being overpressured of the parade itself, it's mostly, it may be realistic, but at the same time, I've been seeing that so many times that in Dance Magic, it was done much more better. Because at the very least, it was mainly the other characters just getting in the way. So, in all honesty, the fact that Rarity is just dealing with this and not doing much other than just getting to know Applejack a lot more, all the while that Applejack needs to get used to Rarity's fashionista partner. I don't remember all the names completely, I completely forgot about them. And the fact that the rest of the special is just mainly shenanigans and the characters just not being intelligent. Mainly Twilight and Sunset Shimmer, which, in all honesty, if this is mainly the fact that they never met these characters, considering that the other characters did in the Rainbow Rock shorts, no. I'm sorry, it just didn't work out for me. In fact, it just really makes it a lot more difficult to see these two characters bond together, and the fact that this just wasn't funny. It's just really difficult to see them like this when they're being dumbed down. That's how much I don't take the human counterpart seriously and how it really gets on my nerves. And the sad thing is that even when they're written badly, that doesn't automatically mean that they're the only unlikable character in the entire special. Because believe me, my relationship towards Spring Breakdown and my experience towards it was honestly a lot more complex, considering that I've seen the Comic-Con footage of Skytry being in the Pony World, which I'm honestly thrilled. And believe me when I say this, this has a lot of hype to it that I've been making multiple videos revolving around it. So once Spring Breakdown came out, I liked it, but as time went on, it didn't get any better. It's the opposite. And considering I've made a follow-up of my Spring Breakdown review to the point that I ended up disliking this a lot more. These specials just haven't aged that well, knowing forward that they're not giving a proper direction on the fact that these characters, even if they're somewhat better than the other, doesn't change the fact that they're not likable compared to the other. Because let me tell you, when Rainbow Dash stated that we're superheroes and the fact that the other characters just disagree with her, and the fact that Twilight wanted this to be a normal vacation when it comes to spring break, I don't get this. Like, I really don't. Like, the thing is, the lore in Equestria Goers is really off. Because sometimes it takes itself seriously and then sometimes it doesn't. And while Friendship is Magic does that formula, at the same time, it was episodic and there was a lot of characters that are cooperable. Different from each other, but cooperable. But whenever I look at this, it really feels like that the only way to make an Equestria Girl special is to add anger, conflict, and being actively rude towards other characters. And I'm being serious that I've seen one commenter say that the characters in Equestria Girls are being rude towards each other and just being actively mean for the sake of driving the plot forward. And yet at the same time, when it comes to Rainbow Dash, who is obnoxious in this episode, it's difficult to see her as the worst character when other characters who don't do anything, and even if they do have that one personality trait of being sick or seasick, they still don't contribute to much. And it just really makes this difficult to take Friendship is Magic seriously with it being a spin-off. All the while taking this format of the Storm King's magic as a major factor after months and months and months of this, of waiting for this to come out, and then when it finally came out, it was a huge letdown. Do you understand onto why that these characters instantly gets on my nerves a lot more? Like, not every single character is badly written, but at the same time, for how they're executed and the fact that they're being portrayed like this, do you really think that the characters aside from Rainbow Dash, aside from Sunset Shimmer, can be able to carry a special on their own? Like, it's honestly hilarious to think that the people who stated that when Princess Twilight is no longer going to be part of Equestria Girls so that Equestria Girls can be its own thing, it doesn't change the fact that the characters can't be able to carry the entire special on their own, and if Princess Twilight was the main character or Sunset is the main character, they will probably carry the entire special on their own, even though that it shouldn't be the case. Because as much as I understand that Sunset Shimmer is likable at some points, it doesn't change the fact that she has to carry the entire special if she's the main character, and then when the other characters get the spotlight, they can't be able to do any of that. They just can't. And the moments involving Rainbow Dash in this and Rarity and Applejack from the last special, it didn't got any better. It just got worse. Like, really worse, to the point that I don't see these characters as actual friends. They're mainly there for the sake of being there. Even if they're supposed to be about Friendship is Magic and they're supposed to teach morals, the issue is that the characters are the problem that the morals can't be back up. And believe me, when you literally just include morals in this in favor of Friendship is Magic that does teach morals, they can't be able to make the characters likable or do something a lot more different that doesn't have any of this, because in order to make a special like this, you have to make every single character dumbed down, really rude to each other, and then when they'll try to at least grow understanding and friendship to each other, it's either rushed or just forced for the sake of plot. Because let me tell you, I can't be able to get into all the relationships, because even though I did written fanfics involving these characters, I was honestly thought that the show would have done a lot more better when it comes to the story structure. Like, I'm not good with grammar, I'm not good with anything when it comes to writing fanfics, but if I know how to handle these characters a lot more better than the show itself, then it's really saying something, because it's not humorous to see these characters being dumbed down, or really entertaining to see these characters do these decisions and just adding filler, because it just makes me question onto why that people are going against the first movie and yet they're defending this. Granted, it may be in the fact that I haven't seen a lot of people talking about these specials that much, but in all honesty, it's something that I just cannot stand about Equestria Girls. It expects you to accept anything it does with no alternatives, even with the better ones. And to be perfectly real with you, my semi-grudges towards some aspects of Equestria Girls have not only increased, but just proven my point that even if I'm not the best fanfic writer, I can instantly write these characters a lot more better than what they were doing in the media of Equestria Girls. I know that's not really a good comparison, considering that there are other fanfic writers that are better than me, but at the same time, I've been making a lot of fanfics from not only from Friendship is Magic, but also Equestria Girls. And to be perfectly real with you, just in the fact that I didn't come back to these, and yet I'm still making a video, and I still remember aspects of it despite forgetting the names of the characters, it really shows that my knowledge of this just hasn't changed. Like, if you're gonna say, don't you like Midnight Sparkle, I do, but at the same time, for how it was executed and the fact that the characters that we're supposed to root for ended up getting dumbed down, and then when you completely look of how they were in the past, even if it may be for changing in production, mainly different people in charge, it really feels like the people who have been working on the newer material of Equestria Girls didn't took this spin-off seriously. And I'm being really honest with you that when you don't take anything seriously, then why should I take anything seriously in anything of what these characters go through, on the fact that they're getting so much derailments, or just making these choices that you either accept them, or you're not really into Equestria Girls completely. Because, let me tell you, Legend of Everfree, even if I didn't do much aside from making my Human Princess Twilight rant, I was really trying to be a bit positive, since that it was the latest material from Equestria Girls that had no shorts whatsoever, unlike Rainbow Rocks and Friendship games. And to be perfectly honest, upon watching this fourth film for the first time, I really had passion towards it, and to be perfectly honest, when there isn't going to be any more films after Equestria Girls, I was totally fine with that. Like, it makes sense considering that they're probably focusing on the digital series so that they can actually do some entertainment, but also put more focus on the 44-minute specials. However, that's where all the good points end though, which leads to them turning into negatives due to how time has passed. Remember when Sunset Shimmer that the droids, I can't spell them correctly, but if I did, then that's a plus for me, around the girls' necks that they ended up getting at the end of Legend of Everfree, when Sunset Shimmer stated that they were meant for them for this entire time. Maybe it's either on the fact that they want to take some originality of turning them into their own characters in the same way as the main six did when it comes to getting the elements of harmony, but at the same time, knowing how they were executed as the series progressed, it doesn't change the fact that once the magic was surging into the human world, and as we continue to reach more material involving the Crusty Eagles, it doesn't mean anything. Like, as far as I'm concerned, with that cliffhanger of an ending of Legend of Everfree, which is supposed to be a huge driving point, but all it does is just having magic surging into different location, and it's mostly Sunset's fault, all the while that she learns that she should accept that magic should appear often while not witnessing on where it's coming from. Yeah. I don't even understand until why that I consider this as a positive, considering that every time I look at the newer material of Equestria Girls, it just really feels like that I've seen all this before, and even if this is supposed to be toned down, they're making the characters a lot more unlikable rather than intelligent, to the point that in the films, they weren't like that. Like, they're supporting characters, and while I understand that there are a few issues I have with them, did it ever occur to them that they should be fully aware that the world that they're in is supposed to be not as normal compared to our real world? Because let me tell you, there was a video earlier this year. Well, it just explains a lot onto why that I was into this series a lot more. And then when I see all these problems and when I question about them, they're starting to become huge factors on the problems of the spin-off. The video I was referring to is Equestria Girls makes zero sense, here's why. Well, I know I didn't spell his name right, but regardless, I'm not into the boring community. Well, he discusses on the ages of the human counterparts and pony counterparts, and how the portal usually works when it comes to teleportation of turning into a human, and vice versa, of turning into a pony. And since that he mentions about Skytry having no wings, despite the fact that she has wings in the human world, I think that there's a reason onto why that video ended up gaining more traction, which really sums up on the fact that that video is a 2023 video instead of a video that happened nearly years ago, because this video is 5 months old. And with the addition of how Equestria Girls has aged poorly, unlike Friendship is Magic, I guess there's pretty much a reason onto why we never got Equestria Girls Outlives Friendship is Magic a reality. Mainly of how people just wanted to have this, wanted the spin-off to have a conclusion similar to Friendship is Magic, but they didn't get one. And to be perfectly real with you, this just really sums up onto why I haven't gone back to the spin-off, unlike the other times I get back to other media in the past, because the best thing about other media is that there are good aspects that remain good, and even though that they are mostly get drained, they drain you the most, at the same time, you can instantly get back into those as time went by. Because believe me when I say this, I get out of a lot of things. Like, I don't play video games that much. I'm not into Steven Universe, and I'm certainly not into We Bear Bears at the moment, unlike I used to. But there was always a chance that I always get back into those media, because there was something that is worth discussing about, and something that is actually a lot more better than anything of what Equestria Girls has done. Because it really feels like that the only way for this to become a reality is for the sake of just doing something and just try to do a more, but make the characters dumbed down for the more to work. Regardless if this is supposed to be for girls, it's still an issue, because in friendship is magic, it wasn't afraid to take risks. So, when literally the main attraction of Equestria Girls is mainly Sunset Shimmer, and the fact that she's only exclusive towards Equestria Girls, while the other characters can't be able to carry the entire spin-off, then I'm pretty sure that if she decides to come to Equestria at the end of Equestria Girls, I'm pretty sure that she will probably experience new hardships and try to develop it a lot more differently. And when it comes to her staying at Equestria Girls or moving back to Equestria, on the fact that she really misses the world of Equestria Girls, it just makes me a lot more confused, considering that the world building in this just doesn't make sense most of the time. I'm being real with you that I don't hate Sunset Shimmer, but at the same time, when the other characters can't be able to carry the entire special, then it really shows. And believe me, the final story-driven special of Equestria Girls, Sunset's Backstage Past, sums up a lot on the fact that no matter what they do, they can't be able to make anything better unless they have Sunset Shimmer in the mix. And to be perfectly real with you, of how Sunset was developed since the very beginning, this really feels odd, but at the same time, it's slightly better than the last specials, which isn't saying much considering that I might sit through this over the last specials, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that this special isn't good. Believe me when I say this, the only aspects I actually like from this special is the fact that though in a music festival, the Star Sword Music Festival that is, and to be perfectly honest, this just gave me an introduction of what musical festivals are like in the real world, which is the same thing as a yacht from Spring Breakdown, but that's literally it. Now the main focus of Sunset's Backstage Pass is that Sunset Shimmer, who has to carry the entire special with Pinkie Pie, needs to learn a valuable lesson on being with someone, and she needs to change, considering that she's been criticizing other people for not changing. Let me tell you, in Forgotten Friendship, even though that she was in a struggle that her friends lost the memories due to the memory stone that Wildflower Blush has in possession, do you really think that if we live in an alternative universe where all of her memories are gone and she needs to start from scratch in order to become a better person, it may be a nightmare, but at the same time, she will be willing to change. But when it comes to the other characters, they will never change. And it's either for the worst. Because let me tell you, back when this special came out, people were still into Pinkie Pie even in Equestria Girls. And to be perfectly real with you, as time went by, it really shows that they're trying to give Pinkie Pie a purpose on trying to carry a special, but at the same time, it doesn't even feel like that they're even trying whatsoever, and they're just instantly trying to throw in Pinkie Pie jokes and try to hammer in on Pinkie Pie's personality because they knew that there is no other way to continue off the spin-off, because this is the final story-driven special, and the next material afterwards is just holiday episodes. And to be perfectly real with you, this really affects this special a lot more, considering that not everyone needs to change but Sunset Shimmer, which for me personally, that's a problem of what other shows have, like the Loud House when it comes to Lincoln Loud, and when it comes to his sisters who are better than him, but at the same time they don't change because they're handicapping Lincoln. This is literally the same formula of the characters handicapping the main character to the point that you can instantly have a difficult time on going against the main character while finding the other characters difficult to root for. If you're one of those people who didn't like anything whatsoever in the first Equestria Girls movie and the fact that they had to tone it down, I understand the criticisms, but the thing is, it just made the audio media of Equestria Girls better, because at the same time, they didn't make every single character dumbed down. Like, they were, but at the same time, they were actually in character. I'm not talking about Princess Twilight, since that she's from Equestria. I'm literally talking about the main five: Rainbow Dash, Applejack, Pinkie Pie, Rarity, and Fluttershy, and the fact that they were much more better there compared to how they were as the series progressed. What is it with flannerization that instantly just damages the character's credibility that really makes them difficult to enjoy? Like, if I'm willing to forgive anything of what they did when it comes to their arguments and setbacks in the Equestria Girls films, is that they were this close of getting development. Like, it may not be successful development, but at the same time, they were at least getting development in some sort of way. Like, I didn't like the arguments in Rainbow Rocks to the point that it got overshadowed due to the other aspects. But looking at them now, sometimes when you try to make these characters too dumbed down and difficult to relate to at times, you would rather see them in a TV series rather than a digital series or limited specials or basically anything. Either it's the fact that Hasbro wants to save money or something, or the fact that they just want to put more focus on Friendship is Magic than Equestria Girls. But if you're going to continue on with Equestria Girls and doing these different ideals, at least be thoughtful about it. Because every time I look at Equestria Girls, no matter what it is, aside from my fanfics, it's literally a waste of thought and mainly done for jokes. And in all honesty, Equestria Girls, or My Little Pony in general, is humorous, but the more I look at these jokes, they're not cringe, but they're really forced. Like, they're really forced to where I can't be able to take them seriously or laugh at them. And the fact that they're just throwing in adult jokes, which little kids shows do that, especially Bluey, it just wasn't enough. Like, it just wasn't enough to the point that a group of characters need to go against one character for that one character to learn a lesson, while that character, who is mostly the trouble in all this, and the fact that she is mostly handicapped, but mainly on the fact that she can't be able to over succeed on not being handicapped to become a better person like Sunset Shimmer, mainly doing better, as in focusing and whatnot, which I understand that Pinkie Pie is Pinkie Pie at the end of the day, but when Sunset Shimmer needs to do all of it in one special, while Pinkie Pie doesn't get to do anything, it really shows that Pinkie Pie nowadays is honestly becoming history at this point. I'm sorry, but at the same time, the 2010s decade was literally a decade that had Generation 4 all over it, and when this decade came around, all that has faded. And for me personally, I'm not really against Sunset Shimmer whatsoever, because she had to do what she could, and the fact that her friends are not being supportive, although I'm not questioning the fact that there's a time loop going on. Do you honestly think that I should instantly go against Sunset Shimmer completely? Like, all I'm just gonna be thinking of is, just go back to Equestria. Granted, you may have to start over, but at the same time, I'm pretty sure that anyone there won't forget anything, especially when it comes to time loops. Believe me when I say this, is that when Sunset Shimmer is the only character that remembers the whole time loop situation while the other characters don't, is it because that she has better knowledge of Equestrian magic while the other characters accept maybe Sunset, except maybe Skytry that doesn't have it, and just not even bother to have character development of their own. It just really raises a lot more questions rather than just finding enjoyment. Like, there was a reason onto why that rewatching these is gonna be complicated, because I don't even know where to start. Like, if I start from the very beginning up until this, which is the final story-driven special, then how am I supposed to take any of this legitimately seriously or find anything entertainment out of? Because it just isn't for me. And then whenever they have returning characters, they don't even bother. Like, the fact that they have the Dazzlings return since they were Aspen since Rainbow Rocks, they didn't even know what to do with them. Like, they really don't know unless they have plans for them in the future. So in all honesty, the more I think about it and the more I realize of how that this special has changed my perspective over time, and the fact that I would rather sit through this over the other specials is really saying something. Granted, the line where Adagio states that Sunset needs to change on the fact that every single day just stays the same, and the fact that they're living life on doing their own way of auto-tuning, in all honesty, when people say that Adagio makes a point, you need to really understand that they aren't doing much in this, and for the fact that they just disappear after they leave. It's like they completely leave and they just don't even bother into making Sunset a better person rather than making her a bad person. It's really irritating to see how the morals in this are being poorly done due to characters being poorly executed. You see onto why that it's difficult to get back into the series, because when the characters are the main problem of the special and the fact that it just drags the morals down, it makes my perspective towards my earlier reviews of this really difficult to go back to, because when I make those, I was just trying to get them out on time. Like Spring Breakdown, when it came out, I instantly made my review of it on the day it came out. And when it comes to Sunset's Backstage Pass, I watched it that was aired from a different country exact. And to be perfectly honest with you, I didn't care about spoilers, so I ended up just reviewing it right away and upload it right away so that I can actually get some attention. This was around the time where I didn't take spoilers seriously, mainly from My Little Pony, but tell me, have you guys ever wanted to see something that you really want to see in the show that you think or know that they can do much more better than you have, mainly taking your ideas and expanding upon them much more better and try to instantly make them the best thing ever, which is what they did with Friendship is Magic? Well, when you look at what they have done involving these specials, it really feels like that your ideal is mainly all fantasy. And that fantasy is never going to become a reality, considering of how poorly executed everything else is. This is really one of the reasons onto why my vibes towards Equestria Girls just hasn't been increased, and when it got decreased, it just makes my perspective off of everything not really a waste of time, but at the same time, a waste of thought. Like, if there's one thing I could give Spring Breakdown, Sunset's Backstage Pass, and Holidays Are Wrapped credit for, is that it gave me inspiration on doing fanfics. Like, when it came to Forgotten Friendship, I did make fanfics involving beaches, and when it came to the Spring Breakdown, Sunset's Backstage Pass, and Holidays Unwrapped, I did a lot more of it to the point that I wanted to instantly express what I feel about the media of Equestria Girls, even though it's mainly in my way. But to be real with you, even if you may not like my stories involving the Equestria Girls or My Little Pony due to me being a poor writer with poor experiences, at least put passion into them, even if I didn't do that with all the stories I've written. Because the stories I've written were Princess Twilight's Lodge Vacation, Twilight's Backstage Past, and mainly the holiday and beach fanfics that really got me motivated to do a lot more for the media. Because that's the thing. The only thing that's good that came out of the media of Equestria Girls is coming up with ideas and doing fanfictions of them, which in all honesty, if you have this knowledge of doing fanfiction that you really wanted to happen on TV, despite with changes, you wanted to see more of them. But at the same time, when it comes to doing fanfiction off of other things, there was a reason onto why that it's difficult to get back into doing fanfiction, knowing full well that Equestria Girls just can't be able to become its own thing without any other way in order to stand out better than Friendship is Magic. Like, Sunset Shimmer is good enough, but if that's literally the only thing you're good at, and the environments mainly being different compared to Friendship is Magic is really all you've got, then I'm sorry, but it really drains me. Like, it really, really drains me. Like, I really wanted to stay positive all the time. Like, I really, really do. And considering that the fanfics that I've written, despite not being into Equestria Girls that much, was literally the only thing I have left for My Little Pony or Equestria Girls related, is really saying something that fanfics can instantly save you from getting invested to a spin-off that you're not even watching completely, unless if you're trying to do some research in order to understand that sophisticated character or that environment in general. And the sad thing is, when most aspects, mainly the songs, overshadowed nearly every problem I have, these problems actually overshadowed the songs that make them bad. Like, they're good, but they make the songs really bad when the story is poorly executed. Like, believe me when I say this, I wanted to at least understand the motivations of why that these characters are acting this way or being the way that they shouldn't be. Unfortunately, as time went by, my respect and my kindness in some other way towards this has been fading to the point that I can't be able to take anything seriously, to the point that it just makes it difficult to enjoy. Like, a show or a spin-off shouldn't try too hard to entertain. In fact, if you have the right material, it will work out in the end. But my experience towards Equestria Girls from 2016 up until 2020 or 2021 was literally a draining experience. I really felt like that my early years of adulthood, even though that it's not supposed to be like everyone else's, is really not the same like it used to. Like, I understand that you get burned out and you can't kid yourself anymore, but when you look into the content that isn't good as you remembered, and you just can't be able to find that type of enjoyment, unlike Friendship is Magic, which for me personally has similar problems, but at the same time, it's the main attraction in the 2010s for Hasbro. I really felt like that I can't be able to form a positive opinion off of anything that is from Equestria Girls that isn't based off of fanfiction and whatnot. Because let me tell you, I really can't be able to get into this. I can't really get back into this to the point that it's difficult, to the point that it's good for what it is, because I can't do that. You need to understand that being a brony is mainly just trying to be respectful towards the media itself. And while I understand that those are a lot of cracks in the brony community, that doesn't automatically mean that it takes me back from being a brony, because I became a brony because of not only Friendship is Magic, but also Equestria Girls that got me into the brony community in the first place. And when it came to my viewing experiences of Equestria Girls during that time, in the earlier years of my YouTube channel, I really had less experience. Like, I do have outdated videos in the past, but at the same time, my experiences just weren't that good, considering that I was mostly a brony and not really a cartoon reviewer. And ever since I got into other shows, recently The Loud House, which I've already got into at the end of 2021, and the fact that even though that show has problems of its own that are too difficult to ignore, the problems in the Equestria Girls are like that if you try to accept it on being what it is. It's mainly just having a disability, but it's not really a disability, because this is a spin-off off of a popular show that people remember the most. And the fact that it has to do some setbacks, and the fact that people are still having grudges towards the spin-off, and the fact that I've watched a video showcasing of how Equestria Girls just doesn't make any sense, I really had to face the facts that this just isn't good like it was in the past. It just wasn't. And when it comes to the characters, I can only make them look good if I wit to them on not being totally unlikable. And I understand that it may be debatable if fanfiction can be the answer to everything, considering that nowadays it just really isn't, considering they haven't done that formula with other cartoons in the same way as Equestria Girls or My Little Pony. I just can't be able to find the importance of Equestria Girls and the existence of Equestria Girls, considering that I've been waiting for an announcement that there is some sort of continuation, all the while that thinking that Kappa is the reason that we're not getting choose your own endings or adventures or whatever in the Equestria Girls anymore, or the fact that it's never going to outlive My Little Pony Friendship is Magic whatsoever. Hasbro really has little plans on Equestria Girls if that's the case. Like, if the original plans is to never have the magic surging from the fourth movie becoming a factor as the series progressed, then they either need to wrap things up or either just want to have it continue on so that people can be invested into Sunset Shimmer, but at the same time, they can't be able to do anything with the other characters, along with introducing new characters by making Equestria Girls stand out on its own. Because let me tell you, it's really becoming exhausting to see arguments constantly, shipping wars, and the fact that it's really becoming repetitive rather than helping the issue regardless. I'm gonna be really real with you that whenever I look at anything involving Equestria Girls related, or the fact that I didn't review Rainbow Rocks or Friendship Games shorts, I'm gonna be honest, do you think that's really worth it? Like, even if I celebrate it for Rainbow Rocks' or Friendship Games' 10th anniversaries, they're mainly advertising the films themselves, and to be perfectly honest, if I did review of those films, it won't be a good idea considering I've been doing that so many times. And to be perfectly real with you, it's either me of not being into how My Little Pony works, or the fact that how Generation 5 has been giving the different quality of the franchise of My Little Pony itself. It really shows that if you have your hopes held high, you're easily get disappointed to the point that you don't have anything else with it that you can contribute to much. And the more you think about it, the more you realize that there was less passion that you have in the past than you have with it with anything else, basically. Because let me tell you, I am disappointed with other cartoons due to production problems and the fact that they ended up getting rushed endings like The Owl House. But the thing is, they were taking themselves a little bit more seriously compared to My Little Pony Friendship is Magic or Equestria Girls. So if I actually got into those cartoons when I started my YouTube channel, I'm pretty sure that my YouTube channel wouldn't be about Equestria Girls related. Not even a bit. So when you completely take into the consideration that Equestria Girls isn't the only thing that I'm talking about, and you're looking into other content, considering that your new subscribers that are from the Loud House or anything else for that matter, it really shows that my obsession towards My Little Pony, especially after 7 years, just isn't the same. And it's mainly the fact that the bowling community or the fan base itself is just glorifying them when they were aired back when they were new. Look, I've seen the critiques of the material that they've talked about in the bowling community and the analysis community. But considering that some of the analysis community got worse over time after they were focusing on other material, I don't even think that it's mainly My Little Pony or Equestria Girls' faults, but it's mainly the fact that they just couldn't be able to have that investment towards the My Little Pony fan base or the bowling community, considering that nowadays the bowling community is still a thing, but it just wasn't as it was 10 years ago. Well, it was considered the golden age of the bowling community. But the thing is, they always glorify the community because they have something that is close to them to the point that they really wanted something more out of it. And for me personally, it happens a lot with Pokemon, other material, and anything that whenever I glorify something, I wanted something good out of it, but it just didn't work out for me because we're living in a period where the MCU just isn't good as it was. Star Wars is just becoming a franchise that just lost everything after the sequel trilogy became a thing. The other elements that I have with other shows and franchises have changed drastically because I took inspiration from old YouTubers like Pie Guy Wars to the point that I couldn't be able to formulate my own opinions off of other media on my own, which I did, but at the same time, I had to take other ideas from other people in order to formulate ideas of my own, which is why that nowadays, my YouTube channel just really feels like a YouTube channel that just isn't like it was in the past. Believe me, if you guys may have mixed opinions on what I feel about Equestria Girls and the fact that this is yet another law in the Equestria Girls videos, then why is this considered Lonely Vibes material? Well, to be perfectly honest, this is mainly of how I need to experience on how I felt involving a show, considering that Equestria Girls was the first show and media that I ever talked about on my YouTube channel before I got into newer cartoons. I was putting my focus on one thing and one thing only, to the point that I really didn't have anything else going for. Like, The Loud Tales was brand new when it came out in 2016, which was around the time it became a brony, but at the same time, I didn't care much about it because I wasn't into cartoons. Like, I watched 2 Steven Universe episodes back in 2016, where I watched someone else's reviews off of Adventure Time, which was the only thing that I was into, which was one of the only things I was into at the time, despite getting burned out from it from time again. And to be perfectly real with you, focusing on one aspect rather than focusing on multiple is claustrophobic. But considering that what I did in my future schedules, I was really just trying to do a lot more and just trying to improve, not really improve, but mainly just trying to focus on other ideas in the meantime, that whenever I look at Equestria goes now than back then, the songs can't be able to save themselves. Because I never listened to those songs, and even if I did enjoy them in the past, it's just a shame that the songs themselves just didn't age. They didn't age well. I mean, when I say they didn't age well, it's mainly of how they were being put into bad material that just instantly just make them look bad. Like, I wanted to listen to them from time to again, but since that the part of a story-driven movie that involves a lot of setbacks, even if they're supposed to be for little girls, if I were a little girl, I would have think differently, but since I'm a boy, and considering that boys in the brony fandom are bronies, and mostly My Little Pony fans, it's mainly the fact that the fans of My Little Pony, of being mostly girls, just can't be able to see how boys would feel whenever they see a show with the girls being the protagonists. And considering that nothing has improved in the media nowadays since that Nickelodeon has scrapped a female lead show ideal, it really feels like that I can't be able to find any positivity like I used to back then. Like, believe me, the reality that we're living in, despite that COVID is no longer a threat to us, just makes everything else really difficult to take serious value to it. Because let me tell you, I've watched a lot of cartoons ever since 2020, mainly when this decade began, and since that, the only My Little Pony related material was the Generation 5 movie, and it's mainly that, and it just didn't got me impressed because it's mainly Friendship is Magic again, except that it takes formulas, despite the fact that it takes formulas from Friendship is Magic. It just makes me question it just makes me question onto how it's really important to learn the first time when people who are invested to new material can instantly just get into other material by learning lessons in those in the past rather than repeating them for long-time fans. In all honesty, that's really what really sets me back on being a brony. Like, I understand that this video isn't about being a brony or anything else involving My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, but the thing is, this got me invested in the My Little Pony franchise to the point that without this, nothing else would. In fact, Generation 5 wouldn't even do anything to the point that it would probably make me proud to become a brony, because in all honesty, fandoms just aren't really as healthy as I thought. Like, there's always going to be toxicity, there's always going to be so many problems that I'm not really new to this type of stuff that I should be that concerned. Here's the thing, I don't cringe at aspects of media. Like, I understand that cringe is mostly important in order to have new fans or fans who cannot stand cringe can sit through an entire spin-off or anything else for that matter to find some kind of enjoyment out of. But the thing is, I wasn't cringing whatsoever. Like, I do cringe in other media, but not in the Equestria Girls. So when I do not cringe and I do see the problems of it, even though that this is supposed to be for little girls at most, Hasbro honestly needs to take some of this a little bit more seriously, considering that if this became a thing while Friendship is Magic ends up becoming the spin-off, then this would have been a huge problem that the spin-off would have been a lot more better than the main series. Because as far as I'm concerned, I just can't be able to bring up anything at all, because if I really did that, I would probably do the same thing like I did in my previous Equestria Girls videos over the past, to the point that it would just become really, really redundant to look at the problems of what should be or what should not be, to well that me being the nuisance, which I'm somewhat when it comes to other media, but at the same time, in the defense of other media, they were not for a longer age demographic, unlike Equestria Girls. And in all honesty, there was nothing wrong with you if you still enjoy this along with Friendship is Magic, even after it came to an end. But in all honesty, knowing of how everything is structured and how the arrangements just push me away from enjoying anything good from Equestria Girls or Friendship is Magic nowadays. Even though that at some point I had to get back to Friendship is Magic in the future, I can't be able to get back to Equestria Girls anytime soon. Which is why that it's really difficult to even rewatch one film or special from this in order to look back on what you felt in the earlier years of not only from YouTube, but mainly the bowling community at most. And believe me when I say this, that's mainly the vibes that I have, is that when you have them, not only that you won't be able to get them back, but it's hard and complicated to revisit them. You can't be able to revisit those vibes, knowing full well that the problems that you're witnessing are coming back and they're becoming way more in your face. Like, I'm not against people who still enjoy this despite of the problems. However, I can't be able to find the importance of any of this, knowing full well that it just aged a lot more badly, considering that My Little Pony Generation 5 isn't doing anything better by just taking place in the same world as Friendship is Magic, but set in a different period. Like, I understand that there's supposed to be a difference on how it's supposed to be in a different culture than in the same culture, like in Friendship is Magic and Equestria Girls, but at the same time, it just gave me nothing but a waste of thought. Believe me, what's more disappointing to you? Really hating on something that you want negative emotion out of, or having a waste of thought? Because in all honesty, I can't pick the first option because that is way too rude, but at the same time, the second option is honestly a really sad disappointment, considering that you pretty much wanted more from a spin-off, despite the fact that it's a spin-off from a spin-off. But Pokemon Mystery Dungeon during my childhood was a lot more better than the mainstream of Pokemon games. So I can't understand onto why people, mainly other companies, can replicate it into their own style. And believe me, I know it's possible, and even if the people at Hasbro or the people working on Friendship is Magic and Equestria Girls pretty much never have any experiences in the Pokemon or Pokemon Mystery Dungeon related when it comes to storytelling, at the very least, they could have done a lot more better. Like, there was a reason onto why that I really wanted more from this, but at the same time, it just didn't mean much as time went on, and whenever I look back into any of this, all I can think of is, it's a waste of thought. And doing fanfiction isn't the answer to everything because it can instantly drain you. And the more I realize is that if I ever do a revisit of Equestria Girls or anything else involving Equestria Girls, I can't be able to to form a new opinion of it. Because I remember nearly everything else, despite not watching anything, despite not revisiting anything from it. Like, it's pretty much my ability that I have involving this spin-off, with it being the first meter that I ever talked about. But be real with you. Be real with me. I can guarantee you that if I look into the other cartoons and looking into this blindly, I will probably not see this as a good spin-off. Like, I wouldn't be that rude towards it, but at the same time, it wouldn't change my perspective that I would prefer other alternatives over this. Another long video, and to be perfectly honest, a long time coming to get back into this, even though that my experiences of this franchise only changed slightly to the point that I just couldn't be able to keep anything positive anymore. I'm sorry guys, but if you still like this, including Friendship is Magic, good for you. But the thing is, getting back into this just isn't the same like it used to, and judging of how that I wasn't too rude towards this, it really sums up that I want to be a better person by just trying to be a more civilized person. But the thing is, unlike other medias that I'm still being civilized, it's difficult to stay civil when it comes to Equestria Girls, considering of how it aged poorly and how a lot of my opinions towards this just hasn't been the same like it was in the past. Because believe me, it's really getting old to the point that I just want to focus on the other ideals so that Equestria Girls just isn't the main attraction of my channel. Like, the only times I ever use Equestria Girls related is mainly in 2022 was literally the characters of Rarity and Applejack in my LGBT story, which I haven't continued at all. Believe me when I say this, I really had a difficult time continuing on off of other fanfictions that involved other characters that just really feels difficult to get back into those characters on how you can written them much more better than how they were in the series. And to be perfectly real with you, I don't even think I'm ever going to get back into Equestria Girls ever again. I'm sorry, but it really shows that my perspective towards this has changed over time. That if this was focusing on an older demographic, there would have been a lot more changes, sure, but it would have been a much more better show and alternative than what we've gotten over the last 10 years. This video isn't an anniversary involving Equestria Girls. It's mainly of how I feel about the spin-off, on how it aged after my 7 years of experience of it, despite the final years having no experience of Equestria Girls whatsoever, and just focusing on other cartoons in the process. Believe me, if you're one of those subscribers who have subscribed to me from day one and you still watch my videos today, which in all honesty, I'm not sure if anyone would be willing to watch all my videos from beginning to end when it comes to 2016 to now, but if you have, you might need to understand, you will probably understand that I have changed a lot more better, and when it comes to other fan bases outside of Equestria Girls, there's a lot to discuss, and pretty much more better focused on, considering that even if I do get burned out from other franchises, I still can get back into them, but not in Equestria Girls, because the biggest setback involving Equestria Girls is that it's difficult to get back into them, knowing full well that they're not trying way too hard, unlike Friendship is Magic. And in all honesty, my time with Equestria Girls while it gave me an introduction on Bronies and My Little Pony Friendship is Magic and the franchise in general, it didn't save itself on being a better spin-off compared to anything else. Or basically it's on being its own thing where it's trying to be its own thing. Because in all honesty, I really don't even have plans on going to a Brony community anytime soon, and even if I did want to go to a Brony community, it wouldn't be the same. Like, it wouldn't be... It would probably be good to have that experience, but at the same time, as time went by, that experience you have with it would instantly be wasted. I know it's not really a fair comparison or a fair argument, but at the same time, if you were me and you were getting into most of this and you were in the same route like I was, you will probably understand to why that getting into these nowadays just isn't the same as it was when you gain back into them now, like you were in the past actually. And in all honesty, it's probably for the best. It's really for the best. I know this video was another long video, but at the same time, this video wasn't difficult to make unlike the other videos I make in the past. Because I just can't be able to start off fresh involving the Equestria Girls again, nor start over, because in all honesty, there's nothing else I can make, there's nothing new I can find in the Equestria Girls, because it just feels like that it's not even trying hard, aside from a few aspects like Forgotten Friendship and the audio films. Believe me, I can't be able to enjoy the songs unless the show itself is good, and for me personally, it really shows onto why that I can't be able to find anything good or positive involving the Equestria Girls, to the point that getting back into the Brony community just isn't the same as it was back then, and the fact that it's somewhat glorified. It's still glorified to this day when it comes to Generation 5, but when it came to how it was glorified in the past and how it's aged poorly over time, it really shows that glorified is the only way to keep fans to be invested, only for them to be drained and having wasted thoughts as the years gone by. If I'm gonna be real with you, seeing the final holiday episodes, mainly the screenshots that I've taken, just really feels like that with it being a send-off of some sort, it really feels like a lazy send-off rather than an effort send-off. Because the fact that I've always seen this once, and whenever I see screenshots of it, it really shows that Hasbro has nothing going for Equestria Girls whatsoever, and just seeing this as the final piece of media involving the Equestria Girls, maybe it was a waste of thought. I'm sorry. I really do. And I understand that me rambling has been a problem, but at the same time, my experiences with My Little Pony and Equestria Girls really feel like beginner's luck or humble beginnings to me, because I really need to learn on how shows should be handled rather than being treated as toy merchandises. It wasn't like that. I mean, it was when it comes to Friendship is Magic, but when it comes to taking the plot seriously, Friendship is Magic is basically what it's done better compared to Equestria Girls, and for me personally, I really need to think a lot more better back then than how I am right now to realize that there was a lot more going on than basically getting what you really wanted instead of just focusing on other aspects. Because, in all honesty, this spinoff succeeds none of that. It may have great songs, it may have great characters that you're grown accustomed to, but at the same time, it can't save Equestria Girls itself. To the point that if I ever talked about Rainbow Rocks or Friendship Games shorts, it would just either be a waste of time, and the fact that these are just mainly advertising the films in general, that it just isn't worth it. Like, it just isn't worth it. And it's probably the fact that I didn't watch the spin-off both in 2014 and 2015, since I became a fan in 2016. It's pretty much on me, but at the same time, it was my interests that really just had to be at the right time, and just had to be at that time that actually works. And in all honesty, I guess my experiences towards Equestria Girls and the vibes that I have is mainly of how living life is like on being into hobbies. Is mainly the purpose of this entire video. Picking a show or spin-off and try your hardest to be passionate about it, but at the end of the day, it just isn't worth it, and with that time that you had with it was good at the time, but later on, it just isn't worth it. And believe me, I never felt that way when it comes to other franchises. So in all honesty, if you still enjoyed it, which I said multiple times in the past, good for you. But for me personally, I think it's best if I just focus on other shows in the meantime and just stay away from Equestria Girls. Unless there's a time where I'm really curious and want to binge watch the entire spin-off again if I ever want to formulate new opinions of it. But it's not going to happen anytime soon. In fact, I don't think it would ever happen, considering I say I would never again be able to enjoy or get back to this. But who knows? The only thing that matters for me right now is just focusing on other cartoons and shows in the meantime, and not be reminded of how I was in the past, which really drove me away on being a different content creator. I'm Lonely Fanboy 48 here, and I'll see you guys next time.